if you're wanting to get off birth control and you're nervous about it, you don't know where to start. Maybe you already did get off birth control too, and you're like, oh crap, like I made a mistake. Working with someone like you, it's not a guessing game.
Acne is not just a skin issue, it's your body telling you something is off internally.
Having those functional labs done really was just a tremendous aid in understanding like what my body actually needs.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of She's in Sync. Today, I have another guest, a special guest, a former client of mine who I'm really, really excited to chat with. Her name is Paige, and we just ended our VIP time together, and she'll dive more into her story. But Paige came to me wanting to safely transition off birth control, heal her acne, because even though she was on birth control, her acne was still out of control, which I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. And also just wanting to learn more about her body, her hormones in general. So, Paige, thank you so much for coming on and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So tell us a little bit more about your story and why you were put on birth control, kind of like your experience on it, and what made you decide you wanted to come off of it.
Yeah, so I got on birth control when I was 18. So I've been on it for the better part of 11 years, minus kind of like a 2.5 year hiatus. But initially, I got on birth control, like I said, when I was 18, because I had one period that was just really prolonged. And so when I went to my OBGYN, the kind of the final determination was, well, like we can do blood work and kind of figure out what's going on, or we can just put you on birth control and like that should regulate it going forward. And me being scared of needles, I was like, sure, I'll take the pill. That's completely fine with me. That is the path of least resistance. So I got on the pill. And really for I would say the better part of 11 years. Like I think that it, in some regards, helped my acne. Especially I had when I was younger, like acne on my chest and on my back. But then when I started getting into like my mid and late 20s, it just like I couldn't get rid of it and my acne was coming back and it was really painful, specifically like in my chin and jaw area and just started thinking, well, maybe it's time that I get off of it because at the end of the day, like I don't know that it's really doing anything for me. And I had also seen, some close friends and family had also transitioned off of birth control, so that kind of started to spark my interest of maybe there's something else that I could be doing here.
Yeah. And I remember when you initially reached out to me, one of the things you said, you were like, the pictures you posted of your own acne journey, you were like, that is exactly what my face looks like the painful,
Yes.
like very cystic, inflamed jaw, chin, around the mouth. And that is confidence wrecking because it's like on your face. You can't hide
Yeah.
it. And it's also, it hurts too. Like you said, like it's something you're constantly thinking about, not only because other people see it and it makes you self conscious, but it is painful too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think now being closer to 30 than I am 20 and actually, having a career and being a professional, like that was really kind of a dip to my confidence because I'm working with all of these other adults and I'm like, this is just embarrassing. Like especially when it's, like you said, in your jaw and like chin area. I mean, it's right there. Like there's
Yeah.
not really a way you can hide it.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And so you mentioned you were put on it when you were 18 for one longer period. And that speaks to a lot of other women who it's like that's just the only answer that's provided versus like, oh, like why is this happening? And then also, what is our body trying to tell us? So, I think that's very relatable to a lot of women listening and a lot more women like yourself and me who, that's a big part of my story, obviously are like, okay, but actually that really didn't help me. That was just masking a deeper issue. So
Yes.
it's cool that we're talking more about this. So, what did you try before coming to me to fix your acne?
I mean, I've had acne really since I was in middle school. So I feel like I've tried, a mirage of different things. Like I had been to the dermatologist before. I hadn't tried Accutane or anything, but I had tried pretty much any type of topical like acne medication. I had tried, all the skincare fads that have been out there, for the better part of 15 years. And it was just something that it would always come back. And so one thing that I learned, which I feel like shouldn't have been that hard to understand, but I was so thankful that like working with you is you were like, you have to take a look at everything that you're using for skincare, makeup, sunscreen, and look at the ingredients that are in it. And what
Hmm.
I found was like, even though I was buying, good quality things from Sephora and like Ulta and all of these places, like the ingredients were pore clogging. So I'm
Yeah.
like, well, duh, of course I'm not gonna be able to get rid of this. So that was definitely an interesting tidbit that I wish I would have learned a lot sooner.
Yes. Well, and you were working with an esthetician too, who
Yep.
recommended some products, right? So,
Yes. Yep.
I talked with a couple episodes ago, I had Emmy on, who's an acne esthetician, and that we talked about that, how it's so, so important to when you have acne, it's a specific skin type, it's a skin condition. So,
Right.
it's something where not every esthetician treats acne or knows how to treat acne, even if they
Right.
say they do, because I experienced that myself too, where I would see estheticians who specialized in acne or knew how to treat acne, quote unquote. And they put me on products that, yeah, triggered my acne, or I'd go see them and I had like a really bad acne flare that wasn't normal purging. So,
Mhm.
if that's something like that's a really good call out for people listening who are struggling with acne, go listen to that episode. And we have
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
links in there too of like an online resource to find an acne certified esthetician, as well as a pore clogging website that I gave you. So you can put all your products in there and just see, okay, do I actually have like ingredients in here that could be contributing to my acne? Because that is something I do with my acne clients 100% is even though I'm not an esthetician, I'm like, okay, find an esthetician who can give you a solid skincare routine that's specialized to you. And then also check your ingredients, even if you feel like you're doing clean products, because
Mhm.
acne is so specific.
Yep. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Did you do spironolactone? You didn't like
Yep, I did
tretinoin?
I did that, and then I think it was called Differin, but I don't know what the
Yeah, that's
actual.
a,
Yeah,
yep,
like I had tried that
yep.
before. I mean, all all
All
of
the
those
usual
things.
things. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And then even
Facial.
benzoyl peroxide, which like you think, it's like, oh, this is great, but some of that stuff is too harsh for your skin too, and
Mhm.
it will make it worse.
Yep. Yep. We need to protect the skin barrier because a lot of people with acne, and I'm guilty of this too, like we just are like, kill, kill, kill. Like I just want to get
Yes.
rid of it. I just want to like dry it out as fast as possible, but then that like damages your skin barrier. So you had tried all of the topical stuff before you came to me. And what we really worked on was the internal causes of acne because it's a very two pronged approach. We want to have a good skin routine topically. And we also want to look at, okay, if you're having persistent acne, something deeper is going on. It's not, acne is not just a skin issue, it's your body telling you something is off internally. So that's what we really worked on in our time together. So let's dive into some of the things we found when we started working together. So, right off the bat, I always, with my VIP coaching clients, do a one on one assessment. So, you and I met for about 90 minutes and we really dove into nutrition, lifestyle, what supplements you are currently taking, because you did a lot of research on your own, like up until this point. I think that's something we should also mention is like, you weren't coming in blind at all. Like you had done research of like, okay, I think I should be taking this to come off birth control or for acne. And some of the things you were doing were like spot on, and some of them were actually working against you. So
Mhm.
I remember one thing we discovered right off the bat is you were taking a B complex. And that was because birth control depletes B vitamins. And so a lot of articles or whatnot will say, like, take a B complex. And for people with acne, that can be triggering and that can trigger breakouts. So for you, that was one thing off the bat. I'm like, let's stop this B complex. So even before we did any lab testing, I identified, okay, let's stop this supplement. Let's keep this one. And then when your blood labs came back, because we test some B vitamins, they were off the charts.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, like this makes a lot of sense. So that was one thing right away. You started seeing results just from that, even before we really implemented other things.
Hmm.
So it goes to show how having that individualized attention is so, so important, and how when you just read something about a supplement, especially, it may not be appropriate for your body and your goals. So we identified that, and then the other thing we talked about was that you were inadvertently under eating based on the amount of exercise you were doing. So it wasn't, it wasn't terrible or anything, but there were some things I was like, hey, like let's beef this up. I think just based on you were doing some like fun, pretty intense workouts that you really enjoyed. And so we wanted to keep those. I think we just pared back a little bit just to start, but then we beefed up. We're like, okay, like let's add something here at dinner. Let's add a snack in. Let's add a pre workout snack in here. And that was really helpful too, I think, for your energy and your skin too. So those were some things that we did right off the bat. And then the other thing too is I started you on mineral mocktails right away. That's something I always start people on from the get go because I know everyone's walking around deficient in minerals. So we did the tweaking of the supplements, taking out that B and doing some other things with that. And then practical strategies for fueling appropriately, making sure you're getting enough nutrition, assessing skincare products, and then those mineral mocktails daily. Once we got your labs back, a few highlights I have on here was that we found with your mineral testing that you were burning through minerals like that. Like you were more high stress. I mean, you have a very, you know, not stressful job, but like, you travel a lot and that you
Yep.
have a lot
Yep.
going on. And so
Hmm.
that combined with just life being life, you showed a high demand for minerals. So right away, we had already started you on those mineral mocktails, and then we tailored your supplements accordingly to repair some deficiencies and, make for sure that you're getting enough because minerals are so, so important for skin health, for energy, thyroid, every single system in the body. And then the other thing too, we found that your copper levels were really high. So when your copper is high, that results in inflammation in the body. It can also result in acne for sure, because acne essentially is some sort of inflammation in the body, and fatigue, low energy, anxiety, mood symptoms, all those kind of things. And so we started you on a high free copper protocol, which was a period, it's anywhere from like 3 to 6 months for you. I mean, your body responded really quickly to that. So I think we were only on it for about 3 months, and your copper levels came back to normal and your inflammation died down quite significantly. And the other thing in combination, we found that you were low in iodine, which, especially for that chin jaw acne, iodine's so, so important. It's antimicrobial, it fights against bacteria, it helps with detox pathways, hormones. So we also had you on a iodine protocol. I'm gonna have to do a deep dive into iodine because I keep talking about this, but iodine, we can't just
Crazy.
supplement with iodine. Yeah, because it might trigger more acne if we don't do the proper prep work. So we prepped you for it. We did the iodine protocol, the copper protocol, and then just really tailored nutrition, lifestyle, mineral replenishment types of things to help bring those mineral stores back up. And you really didn't have any gut stuff going on. I mean, that's one thing with acne that gets a lot of attention and, of course, can be a big issue for some people. But for you, your gut work came clean. So, another ode to why we test versus guess, because I know so many women take these random gut supplements, or they've even worked with providers who focus on the gut with acne, but they don't do that testing. And so they just put them on a bunch of like herbs and antimicrobials, and it's a waste of time, money, and like lack of results. So testing versus guessing to really ID what's going on and what's your acne root cause drivers. Was there anything else that from the lab work you remember that stood out to you or that you want to highlight here?
I think what stood out the most to me, um, and I know we started the mineral mocktails like right away, even before we had the labs back, but then getting the labs back and clearly showing that like I needed a lot more than what I was getting because I was burning through it so quickly. It was really a noticeable difference right away from when I started the mineral mocktails. I was like, wow, like I just feel more energized. Like I feel more hydrated. Like I just felt better.
Mhm.
And so that was something right away that I was like, oh wow, okay, like this is definitely something
Doing
that I
something.
needed. And I think the other thing too is learning about the copper and zinc and iodine and like all of those things that play a role in your body and when things are too high or too low, like what that can mean. That was really eye-opening to me because like I'd never heard of that or had really ever thought about it. Like it's just not something that is really talked about. And so I just think throughout that whole process of actually going and getting the labs done and then sitting down with you and going through everything, it was like, oh, okay, like this makes sense.
Yep, these dots are connecting finally.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah, and that's also why we have to take a whole body approach. Like we can't just look at the gut. We can't just look
Right.
at the liver or, for acne specifically, I feel like that's one where I really advocate for if you want to fix your acne, like really doing all these labs is so, so important because there's so many different facets to it. And again, most of the women I'm working with have a similar story of yours of they've done all the things, so we don't want to waste any more time or energy or money doing something that's not going to work. Like, let's hit this really hard and get all the data because the body doesn't function in isolation.
Right.
It's like, if there is gut stuff, well, then why is that there? Is there high
Right.
iron that's feeding it? If there is high copper, why is that happening? Is the biliary system needing some support? Is your liver needing some support? Which, with long-term birth control use, 100% there's going to be that. So that was something I think we saw with you too, is a good example of we didn't have gut stuff going on, and we had lots of other things with minerals specifically that we needed to address. And that was really important and a key player with your acne story. So we worked together for about 5 to 6 months. You extended a little bit because the protocols we kind of added on as we went to get through everything, and then we retested some of your labs, specifically the copper, because we want to make for sure that one was down, and your body like cleared that out once it had the zinc and the support it needed, and your levels were down, and so you started seeing success with your acne like actually pretty soon. I'm very upfront with my acne clients that your skin is one of the last things to change, right? So sometimes people are faster responders within a couple of months, and sometimes it can take anywhere from like, for me it was like 9 to 12 months for my skin
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
totally clear. So but yours really, once we started hitting those things and getting to those roots, it started clearing within 4 months, right?
Yeah, yeah, it did. And I think, like you said, obviously targeting internally and externally too, I think really helped where, yes, I have acne prone skin, but I also learned that my body was needing things that like I didn't necessarily know I needed. But then again, going back to some of the products that I was using, where I'm just putting things on my face that have pore clogging ingredients in it. It's like when you immediately stop that, it's like, okay, I mean, I really did start to see results. And it was something where, when I had taken pictures kind of at the start, and then when you asked for updated pictures, and I remember I was traveling for work and I went back to my hotel room and I was looking at my face and I was like, oh my gosh, like looking at before to after, I was like, wow,
Yep.
okay, this is good.
Yep. Yes, I know. And I'm going to post in the show notes. You were so nice enough for me to like share those photos to help
Yeah.
inspire people and be like, okay, this is possible for me. So I'll put in
Mhm.
the show notes like a link to those pictures. I did an Instagram post about it. And yeah, they're amazing. I'm so glad that you took those because, especially with skin stuff, because I mean, we're going to have acne flares as acne prone women. And looking back, we're like, okay, like these are, I remember you saying, you're like, okay, it's a lot smaller. And when I do travel, like that's when I know for you, you're more, and a lot of
Yep.
people more prone because you're eating differently. There's just natural stress with travel, different temperatures, and all that kind of stuff. you're like, but I'm breaking out less and they're smaller and they're healing faster. So even that is so nice versus just having this really painful flare that takes weeks to die
Right.
down.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that is really, really helpful. And then, did you notice any other changes in symptoms in terms of like, because you are officially off birth control. So
Hmm.
that's another thing we didn't really talk about. So we actually cleared your acne before you stopped birth control, and then you stopped, and you still have clear skin for the most part. Obviously, like we said, you'll still have occasional breakouts, but
Yeah. And I would say I've probably had like 3 periods since I've gotten off now. And you're always like nervous because it's like, okay, how is this gonna go? But uh, so far, I have very little symptoms. Where like cramps aren't bad. It's not like it's super heavy or like really prolonged or anything like that. Digestion has been fine. Like I mean, I know I didn't have anything necessarily gut related to begin with, but I know sometimes when people do get off birth control, they can experience that. That's been good. Overall, like energy levels has been really good. I've been continuing the mineral mocktails every day, and I think that's been, just a great addition to keep doing, especially with me having a higher stress job and things like that. So that's been really good to see. I mean, I was definitely nervous when I initially got off because it's like, okay, I've been doing all this work and then what's going to happen and is my skin going to flare up or something like that. And, being a few months in, it's like it hasn't. So it's been great to just have that. And it just made me feel like, okay, this is why I did all of the work, right? Like this is why I worked with Taylor because I wanted it to be an easy transition off of it. And I've just been super thankful with the results so far.
yeah. Well, and you did a lot of hard work, so give yourself credit. I gave you the tools and the data, and you took all of that and you were like, "Yep, I'm in. I'll do whatever." Like you were on it, and I it was so fun working with you too because you were also just very interested in learning more about your body. Like I remember too when you were getting off, I was like, "So, what's your goal in like pregnancy prevention?" You're like, "Oh, well, I was just going to use the app," or and I was like, "Well, let's like use other body cues," and that's a big thing that I'm also like really passionate about too is like making sure that women have like a good, if they don't want to get pregnant,
Right.
having a good like, okay, here's how I'm going to prevent that, because that's also why like we're not taught. And when you start birth control so young, like you kind of just always have that, and we aren't taught really how to listen to our body in terms of like cervical mucus and temperature and all that kind of stuff. So that was something we chatted about too for you.
I started the Natural Cycles app and I was able to get an Aura ring uh that was completely through like my HSA account too, through insurance. So like that was really nice too that I didn't know something like that would be covered. So I just started using it and it's been really helpful so far in just like understanding, like you said, all of those other indicators because it's amazing. And I mean, I was one of those people too that thought that, a woman can just get pregnant any day of
Anytime.
the week or month or whatever. And it's like, well, that's actually not the case.
Yeah,
This
thankfully.
is really interesting.
Yes, I know. It's so funny when I was just talking with another client. I'm like, it's so funny how, and I know you and I talked about this too, how little we know about our bodies. And then once your eyes are open, like you're just like in this whole, I mean, it made me switch my career to like,
Oh,
to
yeah.
doing this. So
Like I gotta educate more people.
yeah. Yeah. I'm like, this needs to be known. And, the biggest thing, like you said, is like stopping birth control doesn't have to be a nightmare. Like, that's why I do what I do and work with women like you, because this is something when you do the proper prep work, when you get to the root causes, when you do the lab work that show exactly what your body need,
Yeah.
it's a smooth transition off. Like, and so that's really what I want to drive home is like, it's possible to stop birth control without acne breakouts. It's possible to stop without painful or missing periods. It's possible to stop without terrible anxiety or mood swings.
Right.
You just need someone who knows what they're doing to help guide you and make it personalized to you, right? Like your plan compared to another client's plan is like so different because your bodies and your goals are so different, even though we have the ultimate goal of transitioning off birth control.
Right. Right.
Mhm. Yeah. Was there anything else in our time together that you learned or that you found interesting or that you think would be helpful for other people to know in case they're like, "Ooh, I'm just like curious what that process looks like."
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's just so much more to birth control and specifically like the female hormonal cycle versus a man's hormonal cycle
Mhm.
that we aren't taught. And, obviously a man, it's like 24 hours. Us is 28, to 30
Ish
days,
days, yeah.
whatever. But it's just, you don't really think about how much kind of utilizing a birth control pill or contraception like that, and you're taking that really like intricate part of your body away, right? And not really understanding that, your hormones and all of these different things in your body, like they all play off of one another, right? And that you just constantly see women talking about, really painful periods or like PCOS or like all of these just terrible, terrible symptoms. And but it's like there's not an understanding, a deeper understanding as to like why that stuff happens, or like, hey, just because you have really painful periods doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And there could very well be an underlying cause. And, you're just told, well, if you get on birth control and just not have periods, then like that's the solve. And that's
Yeah.
not really true.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, just understanding that, and obviously, you gave me some great like additional books and just other things to read, and I was able to listen on audiobook as well, that definitely helped me just kind of understand the importance of the hormonal cycle, number one, but then like just everything that kind of goes along with it.
Yeah, and I remember one thing you said too was, you're like, "I've learned that it's much more than just hormones."
Yes.
Like, all the different factors that lead up like, hormones are like, one of the last things to change too in the body, so it's like, okay, well, why is your hormone level high or low or
Right.
off balance? So, we worked on the minerals, the gut, the liver, getting down those toxic metals, like, all of these things, and that's really what made a difference. We didn't do any hormone testing at all,
Yeah.
like, because
Yeah.
most of the time I don't find that we need it, especially,
Yeah.
in certain situations, like, that's kind of like the next step if we're hitting a wall or stuck just for some more insight, but I will say I've not had to do that thus far with any clients because we haven't needed to when we get to the deeper layers of
Yep.
hormone health.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, kind of going through this process, talking with like friends and family, and they're like, "Oh, like, so what are your hormone levels like?" And I'm like, "Well, we're not testing it."
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And then they're like, "Well, what do you mean? Aren't you trying to get off birth control?" And it's like, like, let me tell you about my copper level. And then
Yeah.
people are so confused, but it's like, no, like this is actually what's important.
Mhm.
Just
Yep.
really interesting.
Yeah, and that's a mistake I mean, I made in my birth control breakup journey and hormone in my acne journey is, I talk about this a lot, is like I jumped straight to hormones. And I was like, I need to test my hormones and see what's off with them. And like, okay, it gave me some data, but for the most part, things were normal hormonally. It was the gut stuff and it was the minerals and
Right.
stress and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of people jump straight to the hormones, or nowadays people are jumping straight to the gut, which I'm more pro the gut stuff, but at the same time, like for some people, it's not just the gut,
Exactly the
especially with
same.
acne, or maybe their gut's clean and it's something else.
Yep.
So we got to unravel all the different layers to figure out what it is for you versus just isolating this one body part or one body system.
Yeah. No,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah. So we highlighted a lot here. And I guess my final question before we get to our wrap up question is if you had to give anyone advice, if someone's like, on the fence or they're still kind of like, do I need to like invest in someone to stop birth control or I'm not really sure, like I feel like I can just chat GPT it or Google it, like what would you say? Because I think that's the biggest thing that I hear is like, well, let me just stop and see what happens and then maybe I'll look into it, or like there's so many resources out there, let me just like DIY it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that overall, something like this is worth the investment, right? Because it's not like you will see short-term gain, but it's a long-term investment in your health, right? And yes, like getting off birth control is not like a lengthy process. I mean, it can be several months, but just in terms of the duration of your life, right? You're working towards these goals, but it's that long-term knowledge and success that's really, I think, going to be the most beneficial. And so, like, my advice would be, if you're wanting to get off birth control and you're nervous about it, you don't know where to start. Maybe you already did get off birth control too, and you're like, oh crap, like, well, I made a mistake, right? Like, working with someone like you, it's not a guessing game, right? Because again, like you're going to do testing that's going to get to the root cause of the problem. And I think that without that, it is a guessing game, and it can also be a potentially kind of miserable experience. And like nobody needs that, right? At least for me, like having those functional labs done really was just a tremendous aid in understanding like what my body actually needs. And like you said, client to client, it's very different. So you
Yeah.
truly cannot just work off of what someone else did and expect yourself to get the same result because everyone is so different. That would really be my advice. And, now just being a few months off of it and kind of still, going through the process and continuing different things, like other than my skin being clear, like I feel great. My periods aren't bad. Like I said, I feel energized, I feel hydrated. Like I can't stress enough that it's not just about birth control or a period, but it's about actually your health in your own body and like just making you feel better. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love what you said about it being a long term investment. It's not just a
Hmm.
short term thing, it's like a long term investment in your health. And, like I think the biggest thing for you too is like your goals of like transitioning off and having your skin stay clear and it clearing while we were transitioning off and then staying clear. Like that is a testament to all the deeper work that you did that we got from the lab work to really ID what's going on,
Hmm.
which is amazing. So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing all of that.
of
So
course.
my final question for you, as I ask all my guests, is how you're nourishing yourself recently. It could be, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, whatever, physically.
Yeah. So I would say one thing that I am doing to nourish myself is really the importance of slowing down and intentional self-care. Now that can look different for anyone. For me, it's making time to prioritize my physical health. So continuing to go to, my workout classes that I love. I take time like stretching and doing yoga. But it's like those little things each day where I can kind of take a step back and really just give to me, which it's not selfish, right? We need that. So that's one thing that I've really been pushing recently to
Yeah.
nourish myself.
Yeah. That's a theme for this podcast because I,
Yeah.
I attract similar people to myself of like,
Yep.
we need to like slow the F down
You do.
and calm down. So
Mhm.
I've talked about that a lot with how I'm nourishing myself. And I've had a few guests, they're like, I'm working on slowing down. And
Amen.
yes. Yep. So always good to reiterate that. And I love that you're prioritizing like your workouts and your physical, how you feel physically, because that definitely translates into all other facets of your life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much, Paige, for being on this. This really, the goal of having my clients on is to really inspire people and share just different strengths and to also show you that it is possible. Like Paige's story isn't unique. It's something that you can also experience when you have the right support, the right data, and the right plan for you. You can finally clear your acne from the inside out. And you can also transition off birth control without acne breakouts or painful or missing periods or all the other things that you've read on Reddit or have
Right.
heard horror stories from your other girlfriends, or maybe you've experienced it in the past when you tried to quit before. All of that can be avoided if you have the right plan for yourself. If you like this podcast, just another ode, please like, share, leave a 5-star review. It really helps grow the show and helps more women like you find the support they need and know that this is possible for them. So I appreciate it. And until next time, stay nourished, everybody.